Go. Good morning. This is Coffee with the Summerland Kids. I'm Jericho Wagon. This is Aaron Riggs over here. It's early morning California time, and it's also early here in Colorado. Nonetheless, right now, Summerland is 77 degrees currently, a high of 97 today, it said. Heat advisory, mostly sunny. It is Friday, September 6th, 2024. Here we go. Episode 110, Coffee with the Summerland Kids.
Yeah. 77 degrees first thing this morning. That's a warm one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like the pool temp when you don't feel like it's cold. You feel like it's I have to check the temperatures of Hawaiian water, but Hawaii never seemed to be very cold in my experience when I was there surfing, when I was like 15 at my mom's place, and the water was amazing. I mean, you pretty much put on like one of those wear a t-shirt and wear a little rash guard or something, and the water's not cold in Hawaii, but anyways, yeah.
Down here in California on the coast, that it may be sunny California, but people don't realize the ocean is chilly. It stays chilly, and most people surf with a wetsuit, because it does get kind of cold.
For sure. Yeah, back in the day, but like this is way before our time, but there was a time, we definitely experienced, I guess, in the 70s in our life, wetsuits evolving and becoming better. And I remember sometimes occasionally we would get like a secondhand suit that was like for diving or something, and they were like way thicker wetsuits, where surfing wetsuits, they tried to make them thinner and more flexible, more versatile. So we definitely experienced like a whole evolution of the modern wetsuit during our lifetime, those early 80s days. And then they got to be day glow for a second in the 1980s. And it was kind of funny because, we almost called them like disco suits or something, where it'd be like, oh, who got the bright pink wetsuit? Well, you can definitely see him out there surfing because he stands out like a freaking flag or something,
Oh, yeah, it's wild. My uncle used to cut wetsuits for O'Neill in Santa Cruz.
Oh, wow. Oh, cool. Yeah. So those guys were like, O'Neill was always a great wetsuit. I definitely had a few O'Neills, and then, Rip Curl, I think, was made in Australia or something. And then there was a couple of local shops in Santa Barbara. I think there was one called like Endless Summer Wetsuits or something like that. And they were awesome because they would custom fit them to you, almost like in theory, I guess you go in there and they would measure you up and then check your size and make a wetsuit that fit like really perfectly for you. And I know that sort of in some cases did give you a little advantage. When we were kids, we didn't care what size the wetsuit was. We just put it on and be like, oversized, who cares? As long as it's something to keep you a little warmer, that's all that mattered,
Oh yeah, because it gets chilly out there,
It does.
I always remember just how much struggle it was to get them on and off. It's not like just putting your pair of pants. You had to like get a certain way. Then you had the string in the back, and you had to find the string and pull it up, and But you had to stay warm. I mean, I don't know how cold the temperature of the water was out there, but it definitely, I could see that, a little bit of impediment in motion could definitely affect the surfing.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, in Hawaii, you get away with a board short and a rash guard.
Yeah.
And that's all you need because the water was so warm, less cumbersome than a full body wetsuit,
Yeah, all that. God. And, it definitely like a lot of just above 50 degrees, but below 60, let's put it that way. So, 58, 59, those temperatures are pretty chilly. I mean, oftentimes, once in a while you get used to wearing booties, which are little like wetsuit socks almost. And some of them had a little grip on the bottom, but they took a bit in getting used to, because at first you couldn't feel your board, but then once you get used to it, you feel like you're naked without it, because Summerland, we were lucky because it was mostly sand bottom, perfectly sand bottom ocean in front of Summerland. But then when you go down the way to Serena or go to Rincon or something and it's all rocks. I mean, those rocks are sharp, man, and slippery. Barnacles, weird. You kind of you kind of got to be like, walking very slowly across those rocks with your board, kind of using it as a little platform to sort of keep yourself balanced. Because man, I definitely cut my feet a few times. Nothing really bad, but it is a thing. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's I look at some of the places people surf, especially get them barrel breaks.
Yeah.
Usually it's breaking on some kind of reef or some kind of rock jetty, and it's like, okay, the surface of the
Right.
wave looks totally awesome and cool and tubular, but right underneath, a lot of times, because that's what's causing the waves to break, is a big rock jetty or a big sharp coral reef. So it makes
Yeah.
wiping out that much more dangerous.
Woo!
You think, oh, it's surfing, you
Yeah.
wipe out, you land in the water, but no, that wave will push you right to the bottom. And
Yeah.
having a nice sandy bottom is a lot less painful to wipe out than when you're wiping out on a coral reef or a
I know,
rock
right?
jetty. One of the spots
Yeah.
there in the San Luis
Uh,
Obispo County, you may have heard of Hazards, right?
yeah, I've heard of hazards. Yeah.
So that's like a little surf spot. It only breaks a certain swell will cause it to break, and it's like a gnarly, tubular, awesome surfing wave. But right
Yeah.
underneath that wave is just these sharp, jagged jetty rocks. You know?
Right. Oh God. Yeah, it's intense. I mean, um, when I was in like, let's see, 2018 or right around there, let's say pre 2020, I did spend a little time in Santa Barbara, and I got to I liked going to Ledbetter. Ledbetter was right across from Santa Barbara City College, and it's a pretty mellow break, but there are a few little rock outcroppings there that come out. You got to be aware of, and then but mostly sand at that spot. But then I would paddle down for fun. I got into paddling on these longboards, and I paddled down to the sandbar, which you paddle around when you go down to Santa Barbara, the harbor. They built a like a jetty to protect the harbor. Essentially, Santa Barbara really wasn't a natural harbor setting, but they built a shelter for the harbor essentially, and they would dredge out the sand so the boats could have free access to the harbor. I'm not sure what the largest boat is that goes in there, but it's maybe 75 feet or, you know, a little bit bigger. No major yachts are in Santa Barbara. It is a smaller harbor. I want to say Ventura might be able to handle it, and Ventura is another spot as well where they built in a lot of jetties and a lot of rock outcroppings to block the normal, um, wave patterns to give the boats a sheltered area. I think Long Beach might have a completely natural situation. I'm not 100% sure. For the larger, huge ocean-going cargo ships come in to Long Beach, out
Oh
in
yeah,
Los
they got that
Angeles.
big port, and all the container
Yeah,
ships come, and all the
right.
containers. And I always
Yeah,
remember when I would go down that way, um, it was just crazy. Certain times of day, like in the morning, especially, it'd just be like a constant flow of these container trucks. These trucks of just container after container after container coming out of the Long Beach Harbor,
yeah,
and
incredible.
it's
Yeah,
just wow. You think about how much stuff comes from somewhere else and gets transported.
for sure. I mean, pretty much everything that's coming from China, or just overseas or wherever it's coming from, is coming in from the ocean, pretty much. Bottom line, I guess it's just a easy, smooth transport style um, for California, and it's definitely a. I know they've made some major improvements in technology for the ports, but it's still old-fashioned sailor guys that are hardcore. I had a friend who went to Maritime Museum. Shout out to Matt. Matt went to Maritime Museum or sorry, he went to maritime school and learned all that stuff so he could go out there and do that work, in the ocean, being on the big ships and stuff. And then I think he may may have had a job in working in the ports, because once you have that knowledge of all that language, they speak a whole different language on the ocean, I want to say. And I think they're benefiting from the technology that's been developed as well, with understanding what storms are coming and where other ships are at. So it's almost like navigating the airways, like with the airline industry. The boating industry has there's definitely a relationship there, or some lines that can be drawn comparison and contrast to those industries. So
Oh yeah, I mean, there's got to be some radio chatter, as far as
yeah.
what's going on with the weather. I could imagine trying to sail back in the day before you had radar and weather forecasting and
No radio.
radios and stuff.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, let's go by the stars. Oh, come on, we're
Yeah.
going heading north. The North Star and the tools and stuff that you needed. It's just
Right.
it's wild. I watch some of these videos about like the North Sea shipping. Right, you see
Right.
some of these massive uh, boats, these massive ships, these massive container ships, and these massive waves. You
I
think, oh,
know,
that's
right?
a huge ship, but then you see these waves that these ships are just plowing right through or plowing over,
Oh,
and it's like, oh wow, could you imagine that's your job
I know.
to
You
be
you
out
think that
there?
that would be a highly definitely a man's man, adventurous spirit, hardcore endeavor, so to go through not only the schooling necessary, but then the on the job action that you'd experience is, man against the environment. And sometimes those containers are not small. Some of those containers, I think, get up to 53 feet long, I think. And 53 feet, I mean, that's two containers is over 100 feet long. That's a big, those are big containers. But those things, in those big storms, they get thrown off those ships. It looks like you're just throwing a little, a bottle off a boat, like a small little
Yeah.
object. But it's crazy out there.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I've never been
So
the greatest fan of being. I get seasick a little bit, even just on a
right.
little boat. Lake
Yeah.
boats are kind of fun. I used to do a
Yeah.
lot of lake boating, but I've been
That's
on a
cool.
couple yachts per se. And
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Mostly in harbor. You
Right.
know, I know a lot of people get slips for the harbor, and
Yeah.
they park their houseboat or their yacht or whatever it is, and actually live on the harbor. I've
Yep.
known a few
Yep.
people that have done that, and met a few people that are like, yeah, I've been living the boat life for 15 years. I go from harbor
Wow.
to harbor. I guess it's kind of like living, on these
It's
tiny
different.
homes. You see all these tiny homes and campers and off
Yeah.
grid people. The ocean, I guess, was the original off grid because, I mean, in all
Yeah.
reality,
Exactly.
you live on the boat when you're at sea.
Yeah.
So, what's the difference between, other than staying out of the weather and the tough seas, you're living on the boat at harbor? You know,
Yeah.
you, you can get off the boat and go into town for supplies, but then you're basically on the boat. It was
Yeah.
one time I was out. I think it was Long Beach or near to Long Beach, and was invited out to this gentleman's boat, the Pirate. It was a
Classic.
Chris Craft, a really cool yacht, just one of
Uh-huh.
these millionaire LA Hollywood billionaire types.
Yeah.
So they had like a little get together on there. And then right next door to them where they were docked up, there was this family was living on the boat.
Oh,
He
classic.
had a real nice boat, real big, big enough for him and his wife and his two kids. But it was just such a trip to see the kids out there playing on the dock. And I was talking to him, and he was explaining to me, yeah, I go from harbor to harbor. I've been in this harbor for 8 months, and
Oh,
we're
cool.
planning to go here or there. And it was just like, wow, that I never really thought about, that. I've known some people that are like have lived in Santa Barbara, and it's like, oh, the rent in Santa Barbara is
Me
insane.
too. Yeah.
I got this boat, and I'm only paying $500 a month for my spot, for my
Yeah.
slip,
For
I
your
guess they
slip.
call
Yeah.
it. Slip.
Yep.
And so you could actually live in Santa Barbara. I don't know how much more the slips are now or how many there are available.
Yeah.
Um, but they never took their boat really out sailing. It was just like, no,
Right.
I bought the boat and it's harbored up here and I pay my slip. But to meet someone that is living like that, but then says, oh yeah, when the season's right, we go travel the
Whoa.
ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, I do have a few friends that have done that. One of them graduated, got out of it eventually, but he definitely did, like, I want to say probably a decade or more down at the harbor. And I think you definitely have to have like a little, almost like a little grandma cart that you pull with you, because you essentially bringing your groceries in. If you want to bring any terms of load, you're actually bringing a little cart with wheels with you, to and from. And then they do have restroom facilities right off the dock, like on shore essentially, and also shower facilities and et cetera, et cetera. Because when you're docked, you can basically use the facilities. And it is definitely a little bit lesser cost, but I imagine since back in the day, the costs have tripled, if not quadrupled, in cost. So it used to be, I want to say, much more affordable, but Santa Barbara has become such a destination place. But there is a few, I want to say, legacy tenants, legacy people that are just known as, those kind of guys that have spent a lot of time on the ocean, and they're super well respected. So there is some respect given to some elders of the boating community, I think. Hopefully, but it's Santa Barbara's not a really super big harbor, but it is cool just to go down there and you hear the boats. There's a little like clickety clack of the masts and the sails that happen, and just the smell of the ocean. And of course, Stearns Wharf is still going. It's had a few fires in Santa Barbara on Stearns Wharf, but for the most part, they recover from those fires. And then once in a while, there'll be pretty large storms that'll come through, and will shut down the harbor and shut down the wharf for a little bit. And then it takes them a little bit of time to recover from that. And as soon as that's over, it can be like a week of storms, and then all of a sudden it's flat or something. It's like the ocean it almost throws like the ocean throws a raging party, and then all of a sudden it's crickets, just totally quiet or something. So it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, yeah. I always like beachcombing after a big storm, after like
Yeah, absolutely.
super low or super
Yeah,
high tide. Some of these storms that you get stuff washing up. You get the sand and the beach washing away, so it reveals things. And then also,
right.
like the driftwood and stuff. You get when there's storms, like there was that big Santa Barbara fire, right? And the mudslides and
Yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
had those big heavy rains. I went down to Summerland Beach, and it was just covered in driftwood, and it was like super cool driftwood because they were burls, from wood that had burnt.
Wow.
So
Oh,
because
wow.
it burnt up on the hills, and then there was a flood up on the hills, it kind of washed all these burnt root balls down to the
Right.
ocean. And
Amazing.
the great storm brought amazing beach combing.
Right. Yeah, and imagine up north too, like where you were at. Up there, it seems so much more of a intense water, big wave situation. The farther up north you go on the California coast, to me the waves get bigger and bigger, and the ocean is definitely more drama, more more everything up there.
Oh yeah,
Coming
well
off
you
that.
got the Channel Islands, kind of a little
Yeah,
protective barrier. I always
that's
remember
right. That's a good point.
going to the beach and looking out, and right across the ocean you could see the little islands, and the
Yeah,
surfers would talk about how certain swells, like I guess the northern swells, when the swells were coming from the north, they could get in between the islands and get some really big waves. But if they were coming
yeah,
from the south, I guess the south swell, the islands would kind of block the big waves, so there'd be a lot smaller waves, even though to the north and to the south, where we weren't getting blocked by the Channel Islands, the waves would be a lot bigger.
right. I guess there's some areas out there where they're like, well, I know there's for sure, like, they call them like seal rookeries or something, areas where seals migrate and hang out. And then there's also areas that are known as like, I think there's a place called like Shark Park or something like that, where where there's a lot of big sharks out there. And for some reason, of course, that's some desired fishing area. So I can't I don't know what the divers are going down there for. Maybe was it there's urchins, and then there's the abalone, diving for abalone. And so the local fishing industry has had lots of ebbs and flows in Santa Barbara. Of the days of yesteryear, I want to say the 60s and 70s were probably like definitely a highlight for a lot of guys, because their careers were definitely centered around, I want to say those guys probably made a decent living, comparable to guys doing construction. But they were having a different lifestyle because they were on the ocean and doing fishing instead of being on land and wearing a work belt. They were on the ocean dealing with nets and dealing with all that stuff. So definitely
Oh,
like
absolutely. I've known a few fishermen, as far as like you're saying, abalone and the sea urchins and the divers. So those are,
yeah,
like the divers out there, and that was their daily grind. They'd get on the boat, go
right,
out to the spot, and
uh,
jump in the water with their dive suit.
yeah,
And also like fishing, not just fishing with live fishing, but you got, the trap fishers that like catch the lobsters and stuff. And I always thought that was, such a how shall we say, just like a risky job.
yeah,
This is a job to go out there and face the ocean
for sure,
every day and go in there diving in the water and facing the raging storms. And oh goodness, I couldn't imagine that being, the daily grind. I used to do carpentry, and like that's pretty gnarly, when
yeah,
you're out there climbing up ladders and walking on roofs. Of course there's a hazard, but when you're out in the ocean, anything could go wrong.
yeah.
Your engine could have trouble, your electrical could have trouble, and you'd be stranded out in the ocean, or a big wave or
Exactly.
storm. You can fall overboard and get lost at sea. It's just like, oh, what is all this
I
just to
know,
make a few
right?
bucks?
There's
Whoa.
always those. I remember when we were in our early 20s, you always hear about people's jobs and how much money they made and this and that. And there was some lore attached to going up to Alaska and fishing in Alaska. And I mean, that's a whole nother level of cold up there, so because that water off Alaska has got to be cold, man, and just intense. Um, the whole
Oh
the man's
yeah.
man situation. Now there's some of those shows. I can't say, was it Wildest Catch or Deadliest Catch, something like that. So yeah, yeah.
Deadliest
Shout out
catch.
to
Yeah,
Deadliest
yeah.
Catch crew. You guys are hardcore, man. You're the real deal. There's no faking that job. You know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, people die
Right.
every year from doing that.
Yeah.
Look at, I got a visitor
That's the
today.
was it the Deadliest Catch salmon eater? You salmon
She is the great hunter. She's
dragon
a
hunter. Yeah.
dragon hunter. That's one of her things. She goes out and gets the little, I guess,
Oh yeah.
lizard
No, for
dragon.
sure.
Same difference, right? But she is the one that
Oh,
brings it to the
classic.
porch. There's always, well, not always, but she likes to bring
The catch in. Yeah.
what her little
Right.
catches, her lizards, and she'll take them, and they won't be dead. And she'll just stand over them and
Right.
watch them and just wait. Just this cute little thing you'd never know is just a
Yeah.
killer. She's got the
Right.
killer
It's
instinct.
amazing how they just unleash that. That whole that the fury, the paw fury, and the quick responses. They're just so. It's like they're playing a video game, but it's in real
Oh
time, and
yeah.
they're like their actions are amazingly fast. So yeah.
Oh yeah. It's funny because we got the new bunny rabbit, right? And so the one cat, um, they play. It's hilarious. Like the bunny will come up and sniff and he'll put up the little paw, and you can tell he's not doing it mean. He's leaving the
Right.
claws retracted, and then the bunny will hop around him, and he'll chase him around, and then he'll chase him.
Right.
The bunny will run, and then he'll be sneaking around like he's looking for it,
Classic.
like he lost the bunny, and then the bunny will come out of nowhere and just hop right
That's
up to him.
awesome.
It's hilarious. It is one of the funniest
Yeah,
things you'll ever
that was one of the
see.
coolest things about growing up in Summerland was most everybody had cats and dogs, and it was just it was almost like might as well been the farmland for us, except the ocean was right out front. But it was sort of like, it did feel like we were all kind of like a part of a country farm childhood experience for sure, you know. And there was a few. We actually
Oh
had some
yeah.
ponies when I was a kid. I wasn't really super into the horses thing, but I did feed them every day when I was a kid, and we had some. We had a couple of goats at one point, or one goat at least. Um, so it was pretty cool to just to learn that process and deal with it. And then one of my friends' grandfathers, shout out to Taylor. You remember Taylor? Taylor's grandfather was a horse trainer. So when we were like 15, we went down and worked with his grandfather in the summertime. He'd take us to work at like, I think it was like 4 in the morning or something crazy, because they go down really early in the morning to the racetrack because he was a horse trainer. So we were doing some walking the horses out to the walker. I guess that they walk them and warm them up, I think, in the morning or something, and then they go
Uh-huh.
run around the track and they bring him in. And so we were just doing chores. I think it was a cool way of introducing us to work. And I think you had the same experience, right, at the polo fields or something like that. Yeah,
At the polo fields, I didn't necessarily get so much chance to
yeah,
train them and walking. It was more
yeah.
cleaning
We did
the
that. Yeah.
stalls, cleaning the stalls. And and that was an all right job. I worked for. It was interesting because my grandfather had known some people, and so I got started working with the one guy, and then started working with another couple people, and then I ended up having like 3 or 4
Oh
different people
wow.
I was working for, and it was just kind of interesting because it wasn't like a job. It was, oh, I'm working for this trainer, I'm working for that trainer, I'm working for that homeowner or horse owner. So, I'd spend the couple hours here, couple hours there, to get the
Right.
full day at
Yeah.
work in, I
That's
guess.
cool. Yeah, it's fun. When you're a kid, everything's so new, and just getting a paycheck. I mean, that was definitely a big deal. Getting a paycheck or even just cash money for mowing the lawn or whatever the chore was. Because like you said, that was like where we got our money for video games in the '80s. Was from those little jobs that would give us. I remember. I vaguely remember there, of course, Golf and Fun out there in Goleta. We had the skate park and the arcade, and it seemed like it didn't take much. I mean, back when $5 was kind of a big deal, like $5 could almost like take you to the movies, and I mean, $20 was huge. I mean, it's almost like it's like we never had 20
Oh
bucks. We
yeah.
had $5. Was like a number. Yeah,
Yeah, $5 or $10 will
yeah,
get you on the bus, get you some
yeah,
popcorn, get you in the movies. I forget what the price of the tickets were, but I'm pretty sure they were less
yeah.
than
I
five
think you're right.
bucks. It was maybe
Yeah,
3 or 5 bucks,
maybe there was like a kid rate.
and with 10, $15, you'd have enough to go
Yeah,
and spend the whole day, watch a movie,
right.
get some food, play some video games, have a round of golf. I remember going there. I remember they had that skate park, and then they changed
Oh,
it
that's
to a
funny.
trampoline
Yeah,
park, and
yeah.
there was a couple different iterations. I don't remember the one in Goleta. We used to go to
Okay,
the one in
yeah.
Ventura, I guess.
There was that one. Trying to remember the name of it. It was on the left hand. It was there was a racetrack there. They had little go karts. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, they changed it from they had the skate park, they had the trampoline park, and then they
yeah.
went with the race cars.
Definitely
Um,
like a family fun type thing,
and
family fun
just
atmosphere. And that is sort of a thankfully those traditions of I honestly I don't know what's going on in Santa Barbara lately. I know there's been talk about an indoor roller rink, and I mean people have the nostalgic vibe when you go on. Like there's a couple Santa Barbara memories, and of course there's Summerland memories on Facebook. Um, but for kids nowadays, I guess since everything went so internal, like during COVID, of course everyone stayed at home and all that. But you know I definitely still think there is and there is some success with arcades coming back again, and just charging one rate like $20 for unlimited play or something like that, you know. Um, so, anyways, you
Yeah,
guys have,
it's
yeah,
changing. Some things are changing, some things are staying the same. I think
that's
about
true.
coffee, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Folgers, good old red old Folgers king of coffee, been around for a long time.
I
And
know.
of course, Starbucks is kind of new comparatively to
Oh,
Folgers.
for sure,
And
definitely.
I guess maybe it's just me and going, oh gosh, how can I spend $5 for a cup of coffee? But oh, it sure is a tasty treat every now and then to get that double mocha chocolate
Oh,
espresso shot.
right. I know, and they've made it so accessible now, where, you know, being able to walk into a store and buy iced coffee. I don't think that was really even a thing in our childhood. That didn't even really exist. It was just pretty much soda pop or beer for the adults. That was
Beer
pretty
for the
much it.
kids back then.
Exactly right, in the 70s. Well, cheers to another episode, man. Episode 110, Friday, Casual Friday. Here we are.
Awesome. I'll
All
see you
right, man.
Monday then.
Sounds good. I'll see you Monday. All right. Have a great day. Cheers, everybody.